a huge blue intense light appeared in the bathroom in the middle of this horror, absolute peace. Now the beings of light are here. When they were around, I could smell flowers, and it was amazing because then I started to heal.
What would you say is the best way for people to connect with that divine aspect of themselves?
The beings of light said to me, Melissa,
I recently booked an appointment with Jamie of Refractive Healing. During my appointment, she worked on my energy to relieve the pain of a sore throat. Afterwards, she used her intuitive gifts to give me specific guidance. I followed her advice and found that my ability to channel and receive guidance from my guides on the other side was greatly enhanced. I am still benefiting from Jamie's beautiful gifts, and I would like to share this with you. Book your free distant healing session today at refractivehealing.com. Thank you to Refractive Healing for partnering with me in this video. My guest today is Ingrid Honkala, who I am so excited to speak with. She had a near-death experience at a very young age and has gone on to have, from my understanding, countless out-of-body and spiritual experiences since then. Welcome, Ingrid. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
thanks so much, Melissa, for having me here. What an honor.
It's such an honor to have you here. I just feel like you have so much wisdom just in listening to your other interviews that I've listened to online. Would you like to start by just sharing your near-death experience with us?
Yes, of course. Oh gosh, yeah, Melissa. The way it happened is that I grew up, as you mentioned, in Bogota, Colombia, and back then, both my parents work, and they would leave us at the care of a maid, and she was a young lady that really didn't pay much attention to what we were doing when my parents were not there. So they left one morning, and the lady went to do her thing, and my oldest sister, she was close to 4. I was close to 3, and I decided, "Oh, let's go play cash. Or let's go play in the patio, play with a ball in the patio." And then we went to the patio. No one is watching. We found a ball in the patio, and she's like, "Oh," that's when the play cash came across. Let's play cash across a tank that was sitting right there in the patio. And the purpose of this tank was to collect water for hand washing clothes. Back then, we didn't have a washing machine. So next to the tank, there was a flat surface for scrubbing. So this was a pretty big tank that held about 900 gallons of water. And we're like, that's so much fun. Let's go play there. And then we climbed the walls of the tank. My sister sat on the flat surface that it was next to the tank, and I went to the other side. And there was this thin edge, and I just bended my knees there, my legs, but it was the sense of like, a we're just having fun. Now our adult mind is like, oh my god, that looks so dangerous, but back then it was like, this is fun. So my sister grabbed a ball, and she threw the ball, but she didn't apply enough force, and the ball fell on the water. And I thought I could grab it. So I leaned forward, and the moment I touched the ball, it rolled on the surface of the water, and I fell in the tank. And the first feeling when falling in the tank was the sense of this water was frigid cold. It was like, "Oof." And people have the misconception that because I come from Colombia, I live in a hot weather country. But what happened is that Bogota's high up in the Andes. So just the temperature in the water that early in the morning probably was 30, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So, of course, it was just that sense of this water is cold. And after that, it was that sense why I cannot breathe. I had never been in a pool or in a bathtub. I never had my head under the water. So at that moment, I'm like, what is going on? Why I cannot breathe? And imagine it came the horror,
Mm.
the terror of like, why I cannot breathe. And when I'm in the middle of this horror, in just a blink, I went from that state of horror, Melissa, to one of absolute peace. It was just like, and that was the sense of calmness and just well-being. And I didn't know what happened, but just like I didn't need to bring, I didn't need to escape out of the tank, I didn't need to be anywhere else. Just like this feels incredibly good. And then I like to bring the contrast that I experienced because people ask me, how can you remember these? First, because the trauma of the drowning, and second, because there was many things that brought a lot of contrast to the experience. And one thing was that this tank was completely made of cement, and it was a very very dark space, and it had a roof on top. So it was the last thing I saw with my eyes open was the darkness of the space. And then the moment I went into the state of peace and quiet, there was a light that came from below. Wow, now there's light. And this light was enough to illuminate the whole watery surrounding. I don't mention this too often because I just don't sometimes think about it while I'm telling the story. But later in my life, when I ask, and we will talk about the being so light as we go, but I asked the being so light, what was that light? They said that was the light of yourself, your own light.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, what? That's absolutely beautiful. So, yeah, that moment I see this light. And the other thing that happened was that I was used to an environment where there was a lot of noise. We had dogs and birds and my sisters and cousins. So there was always noise. And the last thing I also heard while I was drowning was the beating of my heart, like pounding, pounding, like boom, boom, boom. Imagine the scare. And when I went to the state of peace, silence. And it's what I call the silence behind the silence, because it wasn't just that all the noise was gone, but it was the peace that it brought. So it's just like, oh. And for the rest of my life, Melissa, I wanted that silence. So later in life, I will hide in closets. I will just go into chapels, wherever a space would bring me that silence. And then I'm now in like, oh, the joy of feeling so good. And then I started to see bubbles suspended in the water. And it was by chasing these bubbles that I turned around and I saw a body. And at that moment, I looked at the body and I said, oh, that's my body. Like I knew it was like, there was not even sense of like big surprise or fright, nothing. It was like, oh, that's my body. Just like this is familiar. And then this is the other incredible contrast. I was born as a very sick child, and I spent almost the first 3 years of my life feeling sick. I didn't even know, Melissa, what feeling well was. I don't didn't have any reference. I just always felt unwell. So imagine at that moment I'm in the state of absolute well-being. So when I look at the body, I'm like, oh, I'm not going back there. No way. And I just look at the body and I turn around and left it behind. And the moment I turned around, I started to see flowers. And these flowers were blooming from nowhere. And I was just kind of like the sense of being picked up and being carried. And this is the other thing that I asked years later. It was like, because everything carries, like, everything is a symbol. What is these flowers? What was the symbol of these flowers? And later, years later, the message I received from the beings of light, that was the manifestation, that was the beings of light manifested in a way that I could understand when I was a child. And I would see flowers and something. So, oh, the flowers are just appearing from nowhere. And then I'm being carried by these flowers, and it was just so amazing. And then when I'm being carried, it was, I always like to give the analogy that it was like going into the womb. You're protected, you're safe, you don't have to do anything, you're just being done. So I'm being carried, like, oh, imagine just resting there in bliss, when in just a flash, I appear in the maid's room, the lady that's supposed to be taking care of us. And she's just listening to the radio, listening to soap operas. And I'm like, oh, that's Maria. Nothing happened. And then in just another blink, I appear in my mom's way, in her path. I mean, she didn't have a car. I can mention she left early and she was walking, and she was close to her bus stop when I was there above her. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, that's mom. And this is the amazing thing that actually validates the whole experience, and that just kind of blow people away, is that at the moment I say that's mom, I said, oh, that's mom, she stopped. She did not give another step. She did not even hesitate. She's just like, something is happening at home with one of my daughters. And incredibly, my mom has this amazing, we all do, but she had the amazing intuition. Like I said, we all do, but not everybody listens to it. And she did. She always did. So at that moment, thanks God, because she turned around and started to run back home. And I just look at her. And at the moment I'm looking at her, I see in the distance a dog. And because I love animals, I was with the dog. Like, oh, how was that? Just like the beautiful kitty catty there. I would have been just petting it. So I just look at the dog and I'm just with the dog. And then it's like at that moment I saw a park. And the moment I saw the park, I am in the park. So it was this realization, like I can be wherever I want. And I started to play this game. So all the idea, the sense of time and space just vanished. And I could be anywhere at any time. Imagine, I'm having so much fun. And then when I'm just in this middle of enjoying myself, boom, in just a second, I appear in a realm, and it was made of pure, bright, intense, shiny light. Oh, imagine, already was feeling incredibly well, but I wasn't expecting to feel even better, because the moment I saw this light, I'm like, oh, I am home. The sense like, oh, I am home. And it was not like even 3 years, almost 3 years had passed. I say to people, it's the sense that, say that you had a really hard day and you left in the morning and it was a long, tiring day, and just arrived in the evening and you're like, oh, give me the couch. I just want to rest. That was the feeling. And I felt that I was not alone. I felt that I was being welcomed. And then at that moment, although I had seen my body in the water, I didn't have the realization that I was not that person. And it's when I realized myself as a being of light. And then I started to feel the sense of just dissolving, dissolving with the totality. I'm just like, oh, this feels incredibly well. And then it went even farther, because up to that point, I was still having a sense of self. But then I went to experience what some call the non self or emptiness. I just call it nothingness.
Mm.
That moment, I'm like, I call it nothingness because it was the space of nothing I knew. It was just Nothing I have ever seen or felt, or nothing I could just put in a box or even understand or explain with the mind. When people ask me, but what nothing means? I said the moment I tell you what is, it becomes something. So it only can be experienced. The only thing I could say is that is the space of just pure consciousness and just absolute presence. And when people get a little bit scared about the nothingness, that's kind of scary. I said, yeah, it's nothing because it's nothing you know, but it's wholeness because you're experiencing the totality of everything. So that was just amazing. I'm like, wow, pure state of being. And then when I'm in this state, my mom arrived home. And this is the other amazing thing, Melissa. She knew exactly where to go. It was like she would have wasted time going other rooms or something, then yeah, definitely the body cannot take that. But she knew where to go. She directed herself to the patio. And there in the patio, there was my sister. And she was still there in the next to the in the tank. And she her purpose at that moment was to show my mom Ingrid is there and I cannot get her. Oh, my mom jumped in the tank, got me out. She said like I was like a raggedy doll. No pulse, no breathing, nothing. And look at the beautiful of the synchronicities in life, like how everything just meant to be. She worked with children and she was trained CPR for children. So she knew what to do. And she started to do whatever she had to do to bring me back. But I was so disconnected from this reality. I didn't feel anything. I wasn't not planning at all to be part of this anymore. I'm just there and I forgot all about this. Because people ask me, like, oh, did you ask somebody ask you to come back, whatever, like if happened in other near their experiences? I said, no, no one asked me. What I just started to feel is that in just a flash, everything in this experience was like that. I felt that I had fallen from the tallest building in the world, and there's nothing I could do to stop this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be back. And then I knew I was back when all the feelings of discomfort and the coldness of that I experienced in the water and the feeling of not feeling well and all this was back. And I'm like, I don't want to be here. And I became really angry. I didn't want to be here. And then it came the other thing, Melissa. It was the knowing. I came back with this awareness I didn't have before. So now imagine, now I'm looking at my mom and my parents and I'm thinking, not just my parents. I had experienced oneness. I felt them as my equal. So I became very rebellious. My mom said, I never met a girl that was this rebellious because I refused to be conditioned. And I wouldn't take anything they tell me to do. Oh, it was hard. And the other thing, I would just look at my body and say, I'm not this child. I'm not this child. And I would look at myself in the mirror and cry and say, I'm not this. And my poor mom, like, oh my God, what do you do with this child? And she was so, I mean, oh God, she was so compassionate, so patient, so kind, and she just do whatever to make me feel better. But I refused to eat. I got sicker than before. And I would look at other children and just couldn't relate because I look at them and I would just think, what is happening to these people? They don't know anything. So imagine oh gosh, the crazy situation. But I always say, thankfully, when I was having a really, really hard time, things got better. And then the help came in a miraculous way because the other thing that happened to also bring more validation of to the experience is that no long after my NDE, now I could imagine, I'm saying I'm almost 3, and now I could read and write. I can resolve mathematical problems. I can put together complex puzzles. So it was all these things was presenting there. And later in school, as I started school and all that, and throughout my life, when I would learn or receive all the teachings at school, I said it was so easy. But for me, was the sense I'm not learning this. I'm remembering. I'm just remembering. So what happened is that when I was going through really hard time, you mentioned it there in my bio, I started to have out of body experiences. And this is the other thing when people ask me how is possible you didn't forget? Like I mentioned, one, the trauma, the contrast, and third, because it never ended. I kept having more and more and more of these experiences, what people call spiritual transformative experiences kept happening. So, of course, my parents fired that lady that wasn't paying attention. They hired a new one. But hey, if this child is sleeping all the time, the lady was happy. She doesn't have to deal with this child. And that's what happened because I started to have these out of body experiences that were bringing me back to the realm of the light. I wanted to sleep all the time. And then I'm just wanting to be there. And in one of these journeys, one day I was surrounded by lights that were shining like all different colors and was like, wow, what is this? And then it was in another journey after that one that one of these lights that was shining in like very bright yellow, like golden color, shaped itself into a human form. And it touched me. And it's when I said, you are a being of light. And then I came back from that and I'm like, "Whoa, that was so." But it comes the part that we have to have balance in life. I couldn't be the child that is left forever. So it was not long after that that I'm taking a shower and I'm just, enjoying my shower when a huge blue intense light appeared in the bathroom. And I'm like, now the beings of light are here. And Melissa, this is the moment where I feeling their presence. After that, I could see them everywhere. I could smell them when they were around. They're always around, but when they were that present, I could smell flowers and I felt the
Wow.
presence. And it was amazing because then I started to heal. So I started to wanting to talk to my sisters, my parents more and eat and do just the normal things that a child would do. But this is the other part. I was very, very detached from my name and from my persona. So there was a time when they were calling me to eat dinner. I remember this time in particular because this was the time when now I started to not just see and feel and know that the beings of light were there, but to hear. So they were calling me for dinner, and I'm like, don't call me like that. I be aggravated when they call me Ingrid, Ingrid. Then the lady came, we're calling you, Ingrid. We're calling you for dinner. Why are you not coming? And I turned to her and I said, don't call me like that. That is not my name. Then she said, then what should we call you? And I said, what is your name? And I say, I do not need one. So of course, after that tantrum, they sent me to bed, go time out. And then is when I started to hear. It's when the being so light said to me, like almost like in a whisper with this just soft, loving, kind voice. They said to me, it's going to take time for them to understand that names are not needed in the realm of the light, as you already know. I'm like, whoa. And it was so helpful at that moment because it was, I understand why I don't need a name. I'm not crazy. And then they said all the things that are happening and all the things that will happen are not for you to keep. These are things that someday you will give to others. You will share this with other people. But they also say, for now, it's best to remain quiet because they're not going to understand. And my money was like, what is not to understand? This is so cool. Who doesn't want this? And then, yeah, I realized very quick that no, they couldn't understand and that nobody, not like everybody saw what I was seeing. But the other thing is that they said, don't worry, there's going to be people in your path, put in your path that is going to help you and guide you. And we're always here. I'm like, okay. And yeah, they were very right. One of the first people that was in my path to help and to validate this was so important was my mom. Because when I started kindergarten, since the beings of light told me that I shouldn't say anything, I have to express myself somehow. I'm just a child. I have to do something. In my mind, it's like I have to express this somehow. Which again, like I was mentioning to you, I knew I was not just this child, but the expression of the human being has to come somehow. And I started to draw and paint beings of light everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Even in the school books, everywhere. I mean, it was this feeling I have to paint this. And the teacher was so curious, and she's like, "What are these? The sun, the stars, what is going?" And I was painting auras. I didn't know people could not see these, and I'm painting auras around everything. And she's like, "Are these the sun, the stars?" And I said, "No, these are my friends, the beings of light." And the teacher, "Oh, we better call your parents," because she thought I was having imaginary friends. So that's when my mom came to school. My dad couldn't come, and this was incredible because it was the part where I really was looking for validation, someone to believe me. And when she's showing all this to my mom, I turned to my mom because they were making these faces and like pointing the auras and talking my mom, these are the colors that we wear, and these are my friends, the beings of light. And my mom, like I mentioned, she was a teacher. She turned and looked at me with that mom eyes, like silence. Because of course she didn't want me to be in trouble at a school. And then I just went quiet and feeling so sad. No one believed me. And when we were in our way home, oh, the big gift when my mom turned to me and I say, I believe you because I also see things that no one can see. And I'm like, oh, mom, what is it that you see? And she explained to me that she saw what people call spirits since she was very little. Then, oh, now imagine that being able to be connected with my mom and validated. And it was just the moment when she also kind of validated what the beings of light said. She said, it's better if you don't tell anybody. They're not going to understand. She said, when I grew up being like this, having this, the possibility to see spirits, they would say I was lying, punish me, and it was not possible to really bring this up. So I understood, and then but now being with my mom, and the next person that came to my life was my father's mother, my grandmother. She grew up as Catholic, but she was always guided to know more, to learn more. So she started to bring all the spiritual teachings into my life, told me how to meditate, brought me books, spiritual books, all that. So yeah, so incredibly that was beautiful because that's when I realized, oh yes, they were right. I'm not alone.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. What an incredible story. And also, you just have such a gift, I think, with being able to put it into words and just drawing people in. Here's a question I would love to ask you because I get this a lot from people. They're afraid of when they hear people talk about dissolving into the light, like that they're going to lose themselves. So, how would you explain the individual self versus the one consciousness that you experience? Do you think that we lose ourselves when we dissolve into the one, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think that, like I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, is to me was the realization that, wow, no, I wasn't losing myself. I was gaining it all.
Mm,
Is just imagine becoming the fullness, the wholeness that you are. Because up to that point is the knowing, or the experience that you are this limited being.
mm,
And we don't know that. We just, that's the individuality of the being. We are this fraction of the totality. So it was, and that's not the very first time I have experienced that. After that in my life, I had, I would just say, 3 or 4 more times in which now knowing in a near death experience, but in awareness, I felt like what I call the dissolution of the body, the
mhm,
dissolution of all these. And it was going back and be part of that whole. And it's when I actually, in one of these experiences, I came with 2 questions, just like you're asking. It was I asked, when did we stop being one with the whole? And how is it possible to forget who we truly are?
mm,
And the first time I asked that question, I was around 19 years old, but I was young, and I was at that moment feeling the sense of, why is this happening to me? So I was having some, at that moment, the sense of being a victim of all this that was happening, because I couldn't fit. It was hard to belong when I was having such a high level of awareness. So I didn't feel I belong. And at that moment, the being so light said to me, in 20 years, you will understand. So after going through a time of maturity and growing and understanding and deepening, the answer came 20 years later. I didn't realize 20 years had passed, but when the answer was given and a similar experience happened again, I realized, oh, 20 years. And then the answer was, when this happened again, they said, one never stopped being one. One never left the source. One just became distracted and seemingly forgot. So to bring to clarity what you were saying, there was a moment when I asked the beings of light, people were talking about high frequencies, low frequencies, the frequency. I'm like,
mm,
okay, explain this frequency thing to me. And then is when they said, with it was beautiful. The answer said, there is only one true frequency, source frequency, God's frequency,
mhm,
whatever you want to name it, the creator's frequency. And I'm like, okay, explain that with more clarity. And then they gave me an analogy that was amazing. So they showed me like a lamp, say like that, and say it had a bulb that is on. So you are that light. What they were saying, that you never stop being one. You are that. You are the wholeness. You are the totality. So when you think you're dissolving, in reality, you're becoming your wholeness of who you are.
mm,
See, you're not just an aspect of you, you are all of it. And we always are. See, so then showing me, look, this ball is on. What happened when you put a shade on it? You start diminishing
mm,
that light. That's the independence that you think you're having, that you are separated. See? And then they show me what happened when you put more and more and more shades on it. So I like to keep this cloth. What happened if you this shiny light, this bulb that is on, and you put this on, and then another layer on, then another, then another, then another, until all these layers, which is conditioning, belief system, experiences, ideas, ancestors, all of that. What happened until you stop shining your light? You're shining your light really low. Your voice become really quiet. You cannot hear because you're under all those layers. See? But that doesn't mean you stop being the light. You are it. Always have been. You always are whole. You are source. You are the totality. Then what is the work? Start becoming aware. All these layers. So the moment you bring and invite awareness into your life, you start dropping those blockages. You start blocking
mm,
those, dropping them, dropping them, dropping them. What is high frequency? When you have dropped more and more layers, what you do? You connect. Now you're part of the whole. That's why you can talk to beings of light, with the spirit world, with the minds of others, because there's only one mind. There's only wholeness. There's only totality. So yeah, now high frequency, you're connected. Low frequency, a lot of layers, you're disconnected.
Mm.
That's why when you drop the layers, you can hear. Now you're part of it. You open the canal. There's a moment when every time I give a talk, I present, I was always saying, it's like after my near death experience, is like the doors never close. I would always say that and don't think about it. And it's when the being so light said to me years later, they said, of course the door never closed, Ingrid, because there is no door.
Wow.
See? So we have to come to the understanding we always have been whole. See?
Mm.
So what we're doing is just dissolving the idea of separation, which is what is called ego. Ego is the idea that we're separated, that we're not connected. Then, wow, is when I said, of course. And they bring another analogy. Look, the sun is always shining, no matter if the earth have we're the ones rotating the earth, but the sun is always there. Or say that you're in your room and you have a window and you close the window, it doesn't mean the sun went anywhere. Just peek through. Oh, it's there. It didn't go anywhere. It's always shining. See? So actually it's amazing the moment we start dissolving and freeing ourselves from all those blockages and layering, start experiencing the wholeness. And that's what is called emptiness. It's not because it's empty, it's because it's empty of what you know. See, it's empty of
Mm.
limited perception that we have. And now we open to the totality.
Wow, that was so helpful. So, what I hear you saying is that rather than losing ourselves when we join the totality, we are becoming ourselves. And we haven't lost ourselves in this form, but it would be more like losing ourselves in this form in the sense of forgetting what we truly are.
You just said it.
Okay.
Exactly. It's the opposite. So that was
Yeah.
beautiful. Yes.
I have never heard somebody put it that way before, but it makes so much sense.
Yes. And this is the other thing I said to people, we're like the onion made of layers. What happened when you peel an onion? You cry a lot. Because it's hard to lose the layers. We're attached. You know, incredibly, when we think about beings like enlightened beings like the Buddha,
Mhm.
what did he say was the main source of the cause of suffering?
Attachment.
Attachment. Exactly. We're attached to those layers, attached
Yes.
to the beliefs, attached. And that's okay. We have to be compassionate with that. But when we start letting all detaching how with awareness. This other concept that people have of letting go, you cannot let go. The moment you think I want to let go, you're attaching. How can you even think about letting go? We're attached. But the moment we start practicing awareness, naming our emotions, inviting everything to be there, you don't need to let go. It will let you go. See?
Wow.
Will dissolve. So you just become aware.
Wow, I could seriously sit and listen to you for such a long time, but I see we're getting close to an hour here, so I'll just ask a couple more quick questions. In
Yes.
one of your interviews, and you may have touched on this already, but you said, home is not a place, it's a state of being. And you also in your bio mentioned that you've been to all of these different places like war zones and other places, and you've learned that the human experience is within. So would you like to talk about that for a little bit? What does that mean?
Yes. Wow. I love these questions. They are awesome. Very profound. Thank you, Melissa. Yes, because it's the idea again that, and experience. I felt it that way. I had my near death experience, and for many years, I wanted to die because I wanted to go there. So I wanted to go somewhere else. Like I said, when I went into my experience or other, when I was having out of body experiences, whatever, it was the sense that I was going somewhere else. Because again, that's the part of the mind that sees things from the point of view of separation. I'm going somewhere until I realized I am that light. I am that bulb. Like I said, in the time later in life, the being so light said to me, that light didn't come from anywhere else. That was the light of your own presence, your own light. Imagine I was shining my own light in that space that seemed dark. So it's when you realize, of course, you don't have to go anywhere. You are that light. You are that presence. Like they show me an example. They show me a room like this, and they say, "Tell me something in the room that never, ever, ever changes." I said, that never changes. The space in the room. The moment you realize I am the space in the room and not the furniture in the room. See, that's the concept of
Mm.
impermanent change. If you put your sense of identity in the outer reality, in the layering, in I am a separate individual, like putting your sense of identity, to give an analogy, in the furniture in the room, the furniture you can change, you can kick, you can move, you can destroy it, but your presence, the space in the room, cannot be touched. So the beings of light said, where are you putting your sense of identity? In the
Wow.
furniture or in the space? Be the space. Be the space, and you are home. Always.
Wow, that's such a good analogy. Thank you so much for that. What would you say, and maybe you sort of just answered this by putting your sense of identity in the space or in the presence, but what would you say is the best way for people to connect with that divine aspect of themselves here if maybe they haven't had an experience to sort of open that door?
Yeah, that's a beautiful, that is a question to ask, because otherwise I don't ever like to say, oh, because I have a near that experience, I know I am special, or you have to have this certain. No, all of us, all of us. And it's given to us even through centuries the tools to go back there. What do you do? Calm the mind. Calm the mind. But of course, we're in a world that is moving so fast. How can I calm my mind in the middle of this chaos? Giving yourself the opportunity to be present. If people even say, I don't have 15 minutes to meditate. Okay, what are you doing when you are heating up the water for your coffee? When it's in the microwave, instead of thinking thoughts of what are you going to do tomorrow in 5 minutes, what about you take that minute, those 2 minutes to stop. Give this gift to yourself. Breathe. Just like that. You practice presence. Grab your coffee and instead of pounding it, smell it. Another breath with consciousness. Drink it. See, at any moment. It's what we call mindfulness. Practice presence. Do what you do with awareness. Go the moment you walk from your office to the bathroom. How many times we go to the bathroom? Listen to your steps. Oh, you flush the water in the, even silly stuff, flush the water in the toilet. All my negativity is flushing in the water. See, we can look, people don't realize that when we use our mind in a constructive way, we are giving so much to ourselves. It's amazing the gift that we can do when we use it right. The beings of light said to me, Ingrid, you think that you are thinking? And I said, of course, I'm thinking all the time. It's a busy mind. And they said, no, no one is really using the gift of thinking as a true gift, because 95% of the time, what people are doing with their mind is that they're trapped in memories. People are not using the gift of thinking as a true gift. You're trapped in your memories all the time. You're just rehearsing the same thing. Say the only time you are truly using the gift of thinking is when you stop, when you go quiet, and you can connect with the creative thinking of the universe. And that's when you become creative, when you get answers, when you, about anything, when you use your inner wisdom, inner guidance. That's the true power. That's why they say, be the space in the room. The moment when you are identified with the furniture, you become the puppet of your own reality. Because if I move that piece and break it, you suffer. But if you are the space, calm your mind, breathe, give a space to yourself, you become the creator of your own reality. Because you're knowing what to do next. What about instead of reacting, I pause and I breathe? There you go. You create a new reality because you dissolve the drama, the story. So we are very powerful beings. Say to people, go to walk in meditation, go to give yourself moments in front of your I practice and I teach to people very simple meditations. Meditate with the rain, meditate with the wind, meditate with the birds. So the moment you listen to a bird, you go to state of awareness. And this is something really important I want to mention, Melissa, because say that you went to a walking meditation, or that today you're supposed to be aware of your walking, or whatever it is that I'm going to be aware today. And your walking meditation ended, or your day ended, and you realize, not even a bit of awareness today. I was in my head, I was in my thoughts, I was disconnected. I said, people, what is the first thing we do? Punish ourselves. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm silly. I cannot do it. I'm discouraged. I'm good for nothing, because that's the programming we have. What if at that moment I stop and praise my awareness? Praise the fact that I'm becoming aware that throughout the whole day I was not aware.
Mm.
Now you're giving yourself a chocolate, a candy, a sticker. I'm good. See, I told you I'm good. Because without the voice in the head saying you're not good, oh no, look, I'm good. So I said, every time that you're aware that you were not aware, or every time you're aware that today I had this burst of anger, or I'm aware of this action, I'm aware of this feeling, praise yourself. And what you do is that you start feeding yourself with good, with goodness, and you start putting in, even in the physiological part of your body, you start feeding it with hormones of well-being, more serotonin.
Mhm.
Oh, this feels good. So now we start reprogramming ourselves. So that's what we have to do. Start reprogramming our body, our mind, ourselves that have been fed all these years with negativity, with cortisol, hormones
Mhm.
of stress, since we were little. Every time I tell a child you're not good, you're releasing serotonin in
Mhm.
the, I'm not good. But every time I start again feeding and reprogramming myself with, I'm good. Look, I did it. I did it. I was aware little bits. Now you're creating a new you.
So good. So even just the very first steps of becoming aware is to be celebrated.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Ingrid, I mean, this past hour has been such a gift to me, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story and your wisdom. Is there anything else that you would like to say about your work?
Yes. I know we're in the hour, but there was one short thing I want to share, and then the work is that the beings of light said to me, Melissa, you don't imagine how grateful. I like to bring these to, if I can, to every talk, because they said everybody will be, if they realize that for you to exist, trillions and trillions and trillions of subatomic particles have to be in agreement. You are a divine intention.
Mm.
So now every time even I drink a glass of water, all these trillions of atoms, particles, photons, energies here for me to drink this water. Oh my God. All this pen. Oh, so we start living in gratitude. That's the other way.
Mhm.
Gratitude is the highest vibrational frequency there is. The moment you are in a state of gratitude, you're in a state of wholeness. So now going to my work, I I love to share. So I do one-on-one sessions because it started people asking me, "Can we talk? Can we?" Okay, so I created one-on-one sessions. I do a monthly mentoring the second Saturday of each month, and that's perfect opportunity. Only $21. That's all I
Mm.
charge because, of course, I need to do all the stuff, pay for the Zoom, all that, but it's nothing. And I get together with the people, and in these gatherings, people can ask questions, can share experiences, whatever they feel to do. So I give a teaching, we meditate together, and we share. That's once a month. And I also do workshops. And if people are interested, in August 13, 14, I will be giving a workshop in Connecticut, Woodstock, Connecticut. So I do all the stuff like that, presentations, talks, and people can find me in my website at ingridhonkala.com.
Okay, and I will have all of Ingrid's links in the description, so be sure to check that out if you'd like to get in touch with her. Thank you again so much for speaking with me today and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Keep shining your beautiful light, Melissa. This is what the world needs.
Thank you for watching and listening. Your views, likes, comments, and shares truly make the biggest difference in supporting this channel. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the links to today's guest, as well as my links. You'll find me on social media at Love Covered Life, my website, lovecoveredlife.com, and the Be a Guest link for anybody who would like to be a guest on the channel. I have great news. Love Covered Life podcast is coming available on audio podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your audio podcasts.